بالله العلي العظيم حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه وأعوذ به من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما سيدي ومولاي بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لهم فداء رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Dear brothers and sisters, أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم. Condolences to all of you on these days and nights that we've come together to commemorate the shahadat of our master Abu Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam. May Allah inshallah give us the tawfiq to be able to understand the message of Imam al-Hussein and inshallah be able to incorporate it into our own lives. Of the barakat of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Before we start, please recite Surah Fatiha for the mu'mineen of the marhumin of Brother Idara-e-Jaaferiya and his family, all his marhumin, please. Recite us Allah, please. So as all of us were reminded by the dear young brother that the theme that we're talking about is Karbala and I. Yesterday we talked about Karbala, the compass, meaning how can we gain direction, how can we understand the direction in our lives based on Karbala. And today, the subtopic that we have for that theme is Karbala, timeless history. So inshallah, that is what we would like to shed some tears on, some thoughts on today, inshallah. When we look at Karbala, when we look at Ashura, when we look at what happened in 61 Hijri, and this is not just specific to Karbala, but because we're here commemorating Karbala, that is the example that we're using. When we look at Karbala, we need to understand that Karbala is not some isolated incident, that it just happened in a vacuum. That all of a sudden people decided that we should go out and slaughter the grandson of the Holy Prophet on the plains of Karbala. So it's not one of those things that just happened. It's not isolated. It's connected. All the events are connected. Everything that you and I do, we talked about it yesterday as well, that every action that I do, or every lack of action, has a direct and immediate effect on my own soul. Similarly, these incidents, these things, these instances that happen in history are not isolated events, are not isolated from other things. One of the beautiful things that we see about Karbala, and we might have not thought about it, we might have thought about it, is that that Karbala is a manifestation, one of the most beautiful manifestations of the principles and the verses of the Holy Quran. Right? We have this aqidah, that's why we sometimes don't have the audacity to say things like this. But some people might think, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. Why would a person do something like that? His brother didn't do that. His father didn't do that. His grandfather didn't do that. Right? At the very least, a question that might come in our minds. That why did it happen like that? One of the important things, and these are things that we all know. Sometimes we just don't make the effort of connecting the dots. Right? We talk about the hadith al-thaqalain. Right? And that's one of the things we love to talk about when we want to put down the other brothers, right? If there's a brother, for example, from a different school of thought, this is what the Shia use. Hadith al-thaqalain, how can you leave the Ahlul Bayt? The Holy Prophet himself said that I'm leaving behind two things. And it's so clear for us. It's so clear for us. But am I able to see the connection between the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt in the Ahlul Bayt's lives? Am I able to see? Well, first of all, I would have to pick up the Quran from the bookshelf. To be able to open the Quran, to be able to recite the Quran, to be able to understand the Quran, to be able to contemplate the Quran. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is a book of guidance that's been sent to us. And it's a very old example, but it's good, so I'll mention it. It's kind of like we go buy this new gadget, and then with it, but I throw that out. And I know the youth now are smart enough, they're very, if I don't have them, it's very similar to that. Who in this room, who in this city, who in this country, who in this continent, who in this world can claim that they don't have difficulties in life? Who can claim that they don't have voids in their life? Who can claim that they're completely 100% satisfied and content with everything in their life? We have difficulties, we have challenges. Sometimes it's with the family, sometimes it's with the work, a lot of times it's at the masjid. Right? It's part and parcel of our masajid usually. I'm assuming it's similar over here. Inshallah, that's not the case. All these issues, all these differences, all these challenges, all these, tensions and everything. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam is saying, listen, this Quran is the cure and the remedy for all your worries, for all your pains. If you want guidance, open it up. Read it. Get attached to it. There's a verse in the Quran where it quotes the Holy Prophet, وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّي إِنَّ قَوْمِي اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. It says, the Quran saying, the Prophet says, perhaps will say, that, oh Allah, my ummat, my qawm, have left this Quran. Hussein gave his life for the message of the Quran. We talk about it, right? Isn't that what we talk about? Yeah, our Hussein is so noble, is so high, that even when his head is on the spear, he's reciting the Quran. So if we look at the messages of the Quran, if we look at how the Quran is trying to get this message across to us, it would not be a surprise at all that Karbala happened. Who else would you expect that from other than the grandson of the Holy Prophet to be able to manifest those verses in their lives? Surah Tawbah, surah number 9. It's okay. Surah Hum, surah number 1. There you go. See, at least look at the glass half full. Right? We knew 1, we didn't know 1. Surah Tawbah, surah number 9, verse number 24. Qul. Allah is telling the Prophet, say to them, to you and I, the Quran's for us. قل إن كان آباؤكم وأبناؤكم وإخوانكم وأزواجكم وعشيرتكم And it keeps going. Tell them, O Prophet, that say to them, if your fathers, your children, your brothers, your spouses, your families, your tribes, and then it continues, وَأَمْوَالٌ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا, and the money that you've collected. Right? The list goes on. Father, mother, children, brother, sister, family, money. وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا, and the nice, healthy businesses you've set up. But you're scared of losing them. وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا, and these comfy, cozy houses that you have, that you're so razi with. This is not, again, I said this yesterday as well, this is not some scary Maulana from Qom who's pulling it out of his pocket. This is verses of the Quran. Verses of the Quran. So tell them, O Prophet, hey you, mu'min, from Idara, living in London, if your father, if your mother, if your brother, if your sister, if your spouse, if your family, if your business, if your house, any of these things, أَحَبَّ إِلَيْكُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ. If any of these things that is mentioned, he says, tell them, if any of these things are more dear to you than Allah, or the Holy Prophet, or, can we say this, doing jihad in the way of Allah. Let me tone it down. Striving in the way of Allah. Jihad fi sabilillah. If any of these things are more dear to you than Allah, or the Prophet, or striving in His way, فَتَرَبَّسُوا حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ. Then just wait and see. Just wait and see till Allah sends His command. This is the Quran. I might not know the Quran. Hussein knows the Quran. Hussein grew up with the Quran. Hussein talks the Quran. Hussein walks the Quran. Hussein reads the Quran. Hussein lives the Quran. Is it a surprise? The verse is telling Hussein, listen Hussein, I know you love Ali Akbar, but you're going to have to let him walk away. I know your love for Sakina, but you're going to have to let go off of her. I know your love for Zainab, but she's going to have to go to Kufa and Sham. I know your love for Qasim. He's the only memory you had from your dear brother. But you're going to have to let him go. Is it a surprise? It's a verse of the Quran. Is it a surprise that Hussein says yes? Whatever it is. رِضًا بِقَضَائِهِ وَتَسْلِيمًا لِأَمْرِهِ. We talk about these things. We don't like to incorporate Hussein into our lives. Whereas the Quran itself, did it just come down? Did this verse just come down for 61 Hijri? No, the verse came down decades before that. Did the verse stop being applicable after Karbala? No, it still applies today. That's just one out of 6,000 plus verses that Allah has sent for you and I to be able to figure out how to figure out these issues in life. Whether it's issue at school, whether it's issue at work, whether it's issues at home, whether it's issues with friends, whether it's issues with family, whether it's just my own personal progress. I've been trying to become better. I just don't know how to. You will be surprised O elders of the community, how many of these pure young hearts that are here in your community want to become better? Even with all the facade that goes on, they want to become better. They just don't know where to turn to. They just don't know where to go. And a lot of times, us as parents as well, unfortunately, don't really have anything to give them. Because we've never gone anywhere other than the Majlis. Now the Majlis itself is good. It's beautiful. But this is an example I give. Imagine, right, whether you're, I don't know, an engineer, a doctor, a teacher, a this, a that, an IT guy, whatever you are. Can you imagine that, if you went to university and got a degree, that your entire education was from a mimbar? Can you imagine that? Teaching you math from the mimbar. You sitting in front of the teacher without a paper, without a pencil, no notes. What are the chances anyone's going to pass this degree? Right? There's some things that require a little more than the Majlis. The medium of Majlis is amazing. The barakat of the zikr of the Ahlul Bayt in the hadith, it's beautiful. There's nothing better than that. But we can't expect everything from here. Right? We can't expect everything from here. Where's the community school? Where's the community Sunday school? How much effort is being put in? How much money is being put in? How much resources are being put in? Do we care about our youth? These are the things that there's absolutely no doubt that you and I will be asked about. This is our responsibility, to be able to learn. To be able to learn the Quran, so we can understand the Quran, so we can understand the message of Karbala, so we can understand the stances of Amir al-Mu'mineen, so we can understand all these things that remain as questions in our mind. If, once in a while, a Maulana comes by and talks about it, yeah, I heard something about it. And that's it. I'm just sitting there waiting and hoping that the 200 questions in my mind that I've had since I was a child, that maybe at some point someone will talk about it. Is that how I pursue my career? With such a passive sort of approach? No, I don't. So understanding that the Quran has all these messages in there. The Quran is not just for before Karbala, not just for after Karbala, it's eternal. After it came, it's till the end of time. And we know this. We just don't sometimes understand this. We just don't sometimes want to see the implications of that, what that means. But the Quran is there. The Quran is there. Recite us salawat, please. The Quran has a very unique way of getting its point across. Right? When you open the Quran, you'll see that there's some places where it talks about the signs of a mu'min. For example, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. This is a sign of the mu'min that the Quran is saying, that if Allah is mentioned in front of them, definition of mu'min. Definition of mu'min. If Allah is mentioned, إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, their hearts tremble in awe. Am I a mu'min? Forget mentioning, I read the verse and my heart didn't tremble in awe. When I stand up for namaz, does my heart tremble in awe? وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. And if the verses are recited for them, or the signs are shown to them, their iman increases. They don't just walk by the verses or the signs of Allah as if they didn't exist. Right? So it says the signs, it gives the principles, And then what does it do? All these stories of the prophets, all these stories in the Quran. This is the methodology of the Quran, that it's telling us principles very briefly, and then expansive stories about where these principles are practically shown by the lives of the holy prophets, shown by the lives and the stories that the Quran mentions. Right? You'll see that the story of Nabi Ibrahim, the story of Nabi Adam, the story of Nabi Musa, the story of Nabi Isa, salamullah alayhim ajma'in, and so on and so forth. And so many, right? You look, open up the Quran, and story after story after story. Why is the Quran doing this? The Quran is trying to tell you and I that, listen, what Allah wants from you and I is the same thing that He always wanted. Whether it was the time of Nabi Adam, or it was the time of the Prophet after him, or the Prophet after him, or the Prophet after him, till the end of time, till the last Prophet. This is what the Quran is trying to tell you and I. In addition to saying that these principles that I'm showing you, these are applicable. This is not just theory. Right? And after the prophets and the Ma'sumin alayhimus salam, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. Surah Insan. The Quran is talking about the incident where Sayyidah Salamullah alayha, for 3 days, right? They were fasting, everyone was fasting, and people came to their house, and then one day they gave it all their food, the second day they gave all their food, the third day they gave all their food. The Quran is trying to show you and I that, listen, when we talk about the do infaq, give to the needy, and give to the needy mimma tuhibbun. If you have 5,000 pounds and you give 1 pound to someone, it's amazing. That doesn't affect your life. Who am I trying to fool? The Quran saying that you cannot reach the birr. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. That you will not be able to reach that level until you give from what you love. Is it a surprise that Hussein gave everything that he loved? It's the verses of the Quran. So what the Quran is trying to do over here is it talks about the principles, but then it practically shows that, listen, these are the lives. This person showed this in their life. This person showed this in their life. This person reflected this principle in their life, and so on and so forth. When it's talking about Nabi Adam, entire story, quoting shaitan for you and I. The Quran is quoting shaitan, so you and I can understand that on that last day, when we don't have any more time, what is shaitan going to come and tell you and I? Quoted in the Quran. The one who's taking you and I off the path. He's going to come to you and I. God forbid, may Allah protect us all. And tell you and I didn't do anything. I just called you. The verses of the Quran. And you came yourself. Don't blame me. Blame yourself. The Quran, the shaitan itself is saying in the Quran that I will misguide all of your people, O Allah. Swearing by the izzah of Allah. Look at the ma'rifah of shaitan. Look at the ma'rifah of shaitan. Swearing by the izzah of Allah. لَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. That I will misguide all of them. But he himself says that but the mukhlisin, I can't touch them. Which one of us, who of us can claim that shaitan has no control over me? Have I ever looked at the Quran that if I want to protect myself from shaitan, what do I need to do? If I want to protect myself from all these sins that I see around myself, and occasionally I fall into their trap as well. What do I need to do? Because the solution is given. What do I need to do to become that mukhlasin, or come close to becoming a mukhlasin that the shaitan himself is saying? Where do I get that inspiration from? The Quran itself is saying, Inna kayd ash-shaytan kana da'ifa. That this trickery of shaitan, you think you don't have the strength to stand up. You feel like you're weak. But the Quran is saying that the trickery of shaitan kana da'ifa. It's very weak. All you need to do, the Quran is telling you and I, all you need to do, just take one step towards Allah. Open up this biggest blessing that He's given you and I, of the intellect. Just think once in a while. Right? I think about my retirement plan. I think about my kids' education plan. I think about my saving plan. I think about this, that, how am I going to do this, how am I going to do that. Planning for the next 40 years. I don't know if I'll be alive tomorrow. And the purpose that I was sent for, keep pushing it further back and further back and further back. So anyways, understanding that the Quran has a very unique way of giving its message. It gives the principles, and then gives, and it shows through the lives of the prophets, narrating the stories of the prophets, that listen, everything that we've talked about, look, I'm showing you how it happened. I'm showing you how it happened. There's a principle, for example, the Quran talks about tawakkul all the time, relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. How can that be, Allah? How can that be? Then He narrates the story of Nabi Ibrahim. People want to come help him. He says, no. I'm good. If they want to put me in the fire, I'll go in the fire. If I'm supposed to be saved, then my Rabb will save me. And what does the Rabb do? He protects him. Principle, application. So you and I can learn. وَلَقَدْ أَحِدْنَا إِلَىٰ آدَمٍ مِّن قَبْلِ فَنَسِيَ وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا. We had an act with Adam, but then he slipped a little. فَنَسِيَ وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا. And we didn't see that azm, that strive, that drive. And then there's the entire story of what happened. Right? Shaitan and the tree and this and that and all of that. Principle, azm. Having that drive, seeing and believing in Allah as the anchor in my life. And it's reflected in the story. That, listen, sometimes there's going to be slips. And then what do you do? What did he do? Turned back towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Did Allah accept him? Yeah. Allah Himself says, Inna Allaha yuhibbu tawwabin. Did we not see it in Karbala? We saw it in Karbala. The same person who became the barrier for Abi Abdullah and his caravan to be able to reach the water, eventually comes in, joins Abi Abdullah. Messages, lessons for you and I to be able to keep learning from the Quran so we can learn. And we can move on. So the point is this, dear brothers and sisters, that these messages that are hidden, these principles that are hidden in Karbala, are the same principles of the Quran, are the same principles that his grandfather lived by, are the same principles that his father lived by, are the same principles that his mother lived by, are the same principles that his brother lived by, and will always be the same principles that his entire lineage of the Ma'sumin will live by. So I can't fool myself to say, yes, this was a little crazy back there in history, but when the Imam comes, I will be with him. If I don't know where I should stand where I should sit, where I should speak up, where I should not speak up, what is right, what is not, what is truth, what is falsehood. How will I stand up with the Imam? But how will I get this understanding if I don't even have the most basic understanding of some of these concepts? Right? This, whether you want to call it basira, you want to call it insight, you want to call it the ability to be able to understand things, where does this come from? From studying books? From going to university? No, let's make it a little more holy. From going to the Hawza? I swear to you, it's not by going to the Hawza. The Hawza can only give you tools. These are God-given blessings. God-given blessings. Explicitly mentioned in the Quran. If you practice taqwa, يَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ فُرْقَانًا. Allah will put that ability in your hearts to be able to distinguish between right and wrong. But I don't care. I want that ability, but I'm living in this world of instant gratification. I want it and I want it now. Right? Can I get it online? I don't even want to go to Tesco anymore. I just want to get it online. I want it right now. Sorry. Can't buy everything. It requires effort. It requires working hard. It requires striving. It requires making it a priority. The message of Hussein is not so superficial, not so shallow that I can, just walk in whenever I want, walk out whenever I want, and that's it. That somehow I will just understand all of it. I need to make that effort. Recite us Allah, please. So this concept of these principles being extended to every sort of time is something that we see. We've seen in the past. We've seen it in the Quran. We've seen it in Karbala. Right? When Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam comes and he's asked to do bay'at, what does he say? He says, do you know who I am? Inna Ahl Bayt al-Nubuwwa. We're the Ahl Bayt of the Holy Prophet. Wa ma'din al-Risala. We are the family where the Risala was based. Wa mukhtalaf al-Malaika. We are the household where the angels come and go from. Bina fatah Allah wa bina khatam. It's with this that Allah opens everything. It is with this that He ends it. So he talks about the attributes of one side of the coin. And then he flips. And he says, وَيَزِيد فَاسِقٌ فَاجِرٌ شَارِبُ الْخَمْرِ. He's a fasiq. He's a fajir. He drinks alcohol. He sins openly. Right? So he's talking about two sides. He's talking about the truth, the haqq, following the haqq, and he's talking about the falsehood. And then he gives you and I a principle for eternity. وَمِثْلِي لَا يُبَايِعُ مِثْلَا. It doesn't say, I, Hussein, will not do bay'at of him. He says, anyone like me, mithli, la yubayi'u, would not do bay'at of mithla, of someone like him. He's already set the criteria till the end of time. That listen, whoever is from this household or attached to this household, this is a principle that Hussein ibn Ali is giving all of you. That wherever you see oppression, wherever you see sinning, wherever you see fisq, wherever you see corruption, that a person like this would never bow down to something like that. Is it just for Karbala? Right? We've seen it in the Quran. We've seen it in the words of Abu Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam himself, he's not restricting it. Why are you and I restricting it? Why are our members restricting it? Why are you allowing people to come onto our members who restrict it? It's a timeless message. Right? Especially, unfortunately, our great Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Right? It seems like all of the fasad comes from there. I don't know how. All the issues seem to root from there. I don't know how. Right? You see people, and sometimes it really, honestly, I'm not just saying this to, make a point or anything. It really boggles my mind. Sometimes it really seems like the way some of these people talk, that literally they went out to one of these gullies of Karachi, they just picked someone up and put them on the minbar. The way they talk, the words they use, the shallow understanding they have, sometimes the bughs that they apparently seem to have in their hearts. For what? Trying to prove that no, Karbala will not live forever? Message of Karbala is limited to 61 Hijri? What is the point you're trying to get across? If someone even says that this is the Hussein of today, or this is the Muslim of today, or this is the I don't know who of today, go ask that person, do they mean that this person is exactly Hussein of, this person exactly Muslim ibn Aqil of? Even a child understands. It's just an example. All it's trying to say is the principles that were mentioned in the Quran, the principles that Hussein ibn Ali himself mentions. This is a person who follows those principles. This is a person who tries to follow those principles. Who can claim to be just like Hussein? No one can claim to be that. Who can claim to be just like the messenger of Hussein? No one can claim to be just like that. All we're trying to say is, these guys are aligned on this side of the coin. The principles that the Quran is talking about, the principles that Imam Hussein talks about, the principles that Amir al-Mu'mineen talks about, these are the people who are trying their best to align with those principles. Where's the issue? Where's this issue rooting from? Where's this? Is it boast? Is it a lack of understanding? Is it ignorance? Is it an agenda? I don't know. It's not my job to judge. But there's definitely some issue. There definitely is some issue. Right? Now, even the people who are furthest away from Islam are able to see the reality of today, that there's a genocide going on. There's a group of people who are committing the most, if not the most, one of the most heinous crimes that we've seen in our lifetimes. Not someone who's a lover of Hussein, not someone who's a lover of Ali, not even someone who's a Muslim. Your average Joes out there are able to see this. Are able to see that, listen, killing innocent people, slaughtering innocent women and children is not right. You don't have to be a hafiz of the Quran. You don't have to be a mufassir of the Quran. You don't even have to be Muslim to be able to understand this. And the barakah of these shuhada is such that it's waking up the world. It's waking up the world. I use the word shuhada. I'm sorry. Is there going to be a clip against me now? Am I saying, did you understand that I'm saying these are just like the shuhada of Karbala? I didn't say that. So why are you so innocent? Why are you so ignorant that every time a person says a word, your understanding is exactly the same? If this is the Hussein, then he's saying that this is the son of Zahra. If this is the Muslim, okay, show me where's your letter from Hussein. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Either you're really simple-minded, or you have something going on in your head that at least I don't understand. Then you have people talking about, no, you cannot pray for these people. Why? Because they're not in the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Oh. The same Amir al-Mu'mineen who said that sometimes it's a brother in religion, otherwise it's a brother in humanity. Brother in humanity. So, which am I saying that these people are the awliyaullah? These are the closest people. These are the salihin. These are the people that the Quran talks about as the best of the people. Did I say that? Did anyone claim that? All they're saying is, listen, when you have issues in your life, you start trembling. When this person sees their own child slaughtered in front of them, they hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel. The first thing that comes out of their mouth is, Allah is sufficient for me. I don't know about you, but I wish I could do that. I would never leave the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen for anything. But I wish I could say this. When I see my own child with their head cut off, if I see my own house brought down to dust, if I see my own entire family cut into pieces, I wish I could say, Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel. Go look at the videos. Is this not what these brothers and sisters are doing? And you're talking about, no, I can't even stop going to a restaurant for the sake of this. What world do you live in? People who don't even know how to spell Islam understand this much. But listen, there's a genocide going on. And the people who are committing this genocide, go look in the Quran. Verse after verse after verse after verse, tens, maybe hundreds of verses. But I don't open the Quran. Right? I just want the likes. I just want the clips. How will I look at Hussein in his eyes and answer his questions? What a shame it is. I wouldn't care if these were people who were, standing in, random places or the corner of the streets of Pakistan. These people are on the mimbars of our masajid, the mimbar of the Holy Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, the mimbar of the person who lived for the Quran, who lived for the message of the Quran, member of the person whose family gave their entire lives for this message. And from this, remember, we're talking against people who are being oppressed. Let me share a few ahadith with you, if you're satisfied about this. This is a hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen, from Nahj al-Balagha, from his khutbah. أيها الناس لا تستوحشوا في طريق الهدى لقلة أهله. Something that a lot of you have heard, at least the elders. That, oh people, don't have wahsha, don't worry if the number of people on the straight path of guidance are small. If they're small in number, don't worry about that. You stick to your path. And then it goes on, and this is what he says. إِنَّمَا يَجْمَعُ النَّاسِ الرِّضَى وَالسُّخْطِ. the thing that puts people in groups is their desire of something or their disagreement with something. This is what puts people in groups. So if I am okay with something happening and I'm therefore razi with it, what is Amir al-Mu'min saying? إِنَّمَا يَجْمَعُ النَّاسِ, I will be mentioned with them. I will be mentioned with them. Let me quickly talk about another hadith because our time is limited. This is a hadith from Imam Rida alayhi salatu wassalam. Someone comes to him and he says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, what do you say about this hadith from Imam Sadiq? He says, which one? إِذَا قَامَ الْقَائِمْ قَتَلَ ذَرَارِيَّ قَتَلَتِ الْحُسَيْنِ. That when the Qa'im comes, someone's coming to Imam Riza and asking him about a hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. When the Qa'im comes, he will kill the descendants of the people who killed Hussein. Right? Now we're not in history anymore. We're talking about our Imam. Our Imam. He says, what do you say about that? He says, وَكَذَلِكَ. That's how it is. Whether you like it or not, that's how it's gonna go down. I don't know if he said it like that. Probably not, but قُلْتُ فَقَوْلِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. How can that be, Ya ibn Rasulullah? The Quran itself says وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى, that no one will take another person's burden. How can it be? How can it be that when the Qa'im عَجَّلَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى فَرَجَهُ comes, he will kill the descendants of the people who killed Hussein? But the Quran is saying this. So what does that mean? He says, صَدَقَ اللَّهُ فِي جَمِيعِ أَحْوَالِهِ. Allah is true in all His sayings and all His words. لكن ذرارية قتل الحسين يرضون أفعال آبائهم. These descendants that he's going to kill, they were razi with the actions of their forefathers. Were they involved in the actions? Did they go kill the shuhada in Karbala? No, they didn't. But they're razi with it. They're razi with it. And then he says, وَيَفْتَخِرُونَ بِهَا. And they're proud of it. And they're proud of it. وَمَنْ رَضِيَ شَيْئًا كَمَنْ أَتَاهُ. And whoever is razi with anything, it's as if they've committed it themselves. If I'm okay with what's going on, then it's as if I'm doing it myself. Again, this is not from the scary Maulana from Qom. It's from Imam al-Rida alayhi salatu wassalam. If someone is razi with it, it's as if they've done it themselves. وَلَوْ كَانَ رَجُلًا قُتِلَ فِي الْمَشْرِقِ فَرَضِيَ بِقَتْلِهِ رَجُلًا فِي الْمَغْرِبِ. Imam Raza's special hadith for the Westerners, the blessed mu'mineen. The blessed mu'mineen. وَلَوْ أَنَّ رَجُلًا. And if there was a man who was killed in the east, فَرَضِيَ بِقَتْلِهِ رَجُلٌ فِي الْمَغْرِبِ. But a person, a man in the west, is razi with it. لَكَانَ الرَّاضِي عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ شَرِيكَ الْقَاتِلِ. In the eyes of Allah, whoever is razi with it is sharik in that genocide. See how these principles that started from the time of the Holy Prophet went to the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen. We see it in Karbala, but somehow something within us wants to stop it at Karbala. But you can't stop it. Because Amir al-Mu'mineen talked about it. The Quran has talked about it. Hussein has talked about it. Imam al-Rida has talked about it. The Quran talks about it. It doesn't matter what your understanding is. It doesn't matter what your agenda might be. It doesn't matter wherever you're getting these ideas from. Because the truth will always prevail. And we see this today in our lives. In our lives. All of you have heard of Tijani Samawi, right? Then I Was Guided and all those books. He says that I was talking to one of my friends. I was talking to one of my friends who was one of those, Salafi Wahhabi kind of people. His words. His words. And I told him, I want to give you a gift. And he gives him his book, Then I Was Guided. And he's like, would you read it? And he's like, nah, not really. This was when? This was in August 2023. And he says, then he said I had to go somewhere. So I left. I came in December 2023, and I came back to him. And I said, have you read the book? And he, in his harsh voice, says, what do you want? You want me to become Shia? I was like, no, I'm just wondering if you read the book. He's like, no, I didn't read the book. He's like, how come? People read this in 1 or 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, max a week. Some people read it in a night. How come you didn't read it? It's like, you want me to become Shia? I said, no, I was just wondering. And he says, I became Shia. He says, how come? He says, Gaza made me Shia. Shayya'atni Gaza. What is this person whose entire ideology is hating the school and the ideology that you follow? What can this person see that a person like me, who's been coming to the Farsh Azam, who's been coming to the zikr of Abi Abdullah for years, that I can't see? See how Allah really touches the people that He wants to touch? We hope that we are of them. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi. Sallallahu alayk ya ayyuhal madlum. There's a hadith from the Holy Prophet where he tells Amir al-Mu'mineen, Oh Ali, I really love your brother Aqil. Do you know why I love him, Ali? First of all, because he's your brother. Second of all, because he's the son of Abu Talib. But most importantly, inna waladuhu lamaqtul fi mahabbati waladik, because his son will be slaughtered in the love of Hussein. He will be slaughtered taking Muslim up to the top of the Idara-e-Jaaferiya, and Muslim was crying. One of the Mal'oons turns to him and says, "Oh Muslim, if you were so scared, then why did you come down this path?" Muslim says, "I am not scared. I'm from the household that welcomes Shahadat with open arms. I cry for my master, Abi Abdullah, because I'm the one who told him to come to Kufa, and now the Kufans have turned away, and Hussein is coming with his family. Zainab is there, Rabab is there, Sakina is there. Muslim doesn't care about anyone but Allah Abdullah. Muslim, his own family is there, his little daughter Hamida is there, but all that Muslim can think about is his master. They take him to the top of the Dar-al-Amara. Muslim raises his voice, "As-salamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah." Muslim sends his salam. The Maqtal says, as he was praising Allah, as he was sending his salawat on the Prophet, as he was saying, giving his salam to Abi Abdullah, they severed his head. They severed Muslim's head. They took his body around the city of Kufa, putting it in the streets. The news gets to Abi Abdullah, "Oh Hussein, Muslim has been shaheed." And then people tell him, "Oh Hussein, why don't you go back?" Hussein says, "There is no God, no good in this world. After Muslim ibn Aqil, after Hani ibn Urwa, there's no reason to go back." The narrations of ulama have said that Hussein calls Muslim's little girl Hamida, calls her out of the tents. He sits her on his lap. He caresses her head. I wonder if there was another girl standing from the tent, looking at, "Why is my mama doing this?" Hamida asks Hussein, "Oh my uncle, oh Chacha Jan, why do you do this?" He says, "Oh Hamida, I am your father now." He hugs Hamida. He hugs the daughter of Muslim. He kisses her. Maybe Sakina was thinking, this is what they do with the yateems of Al Muhammad. But there was a time when Sakina's father was gone. There was no one to hug her. She was hugging the body of Hussein without a head. Ya Abata, Ya Abata, ala la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimin, wa saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun.